If the strait does not reopen quickly and maintain its opening, then everything gets expensive, and it will affect the availability of certain products like agricultural goods, not just gas, but the food we eat. Things like technology, for instance, semiconductors, the computer chips for everything we use. Helium production for the world has been knocked out. So you're already seeing concerns about shortages for semiconductors. And by the way, that will translate into the AI bubble possibly being burst. And this is all because of the Iran war. I mean, agriculture, technology, energy, these are sort of fundamental building blocks for the modern economic model, and they're all being strained and broken, and there is no guarantee that we're going to restore functionality to pre-war condition anytime soon.
Decentralize. Decentralize. Got to realize. Don't decarbonize. Decentralize. 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 Open your eyes.
Welcome to today's episode of Decentralized TV. I'm Mike Adams, the founder, and I'm joined today by my co-host and expert titler, who he comes up with all the best titles, is Todd Pittner. Welcome, Todd, to
Mike.
the show.
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. You are like the titles that you suggest for the show. Those are always the best, and your questions are the best. So,
Well, thank you. I got accused of being a question architect, so I'll take it, Mike.
Yeah, well, that's fine. You can have your own LLM model that spits out questions instead
There
of
you go.
answers. And
Right.
it always hallucinates. That would be perfect. I'm sure it'd be worth like $10 trillion in today's stock market. You should have an
Why
IPO.
not?
Yeah. Or a Todd PO. How about that? Yeah.
I like it.
But our guest today is, I'm a big fan of his work. And
Right.
of course, he's one of the voices of economic reason and sanity on X. And he's got a Substack that we'll talk about. Let's welcome him to the show. It's Brandon Weichert. Welcome, Mr. Weichert. It's an honor to have you on the show today.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank
Greetings,
you so much
Brandon.
for joining us. We are both really honored to have you here, and you're quite prolific. You do a lot of shows now, I think, and you do a lot of writing, right?
Well, yeah, I'm professionally, I am a writer. That is first and foremost what I do, and somehow I'm able to make money at it because I know a lot of people don't these days.
True.
But that's really first and foremost. I write on not just economics. I'm really a geopolitical guy. Background was national security policy. I worked in government for a little bit, and I still consult occasionally with the Department of the Air Force, usually talking about either geopolitics, geoeconomics, or what they're now calling geotechnology, which is really just how emerging technologies are being used to impact U.S. national security, either to harm it or to enhance it.
Okay, so Weichert.substack.com is your Substack site. I want to encourage people to go there, and that's Weichert, for those wondering how to spell your name. So Weichert.substack.com.
A lot of tabs you have open. Wow.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of guests, this is a busy show.
Sorry, I was just thinking about that. That's amazing.
You ain't seen nothing. This is just one browser. You should see the others. On top of that, then here you are We the Brandon on X, and here's some of your books. We'll talk about those coming up. So thanks for the intro, Todd. The first question goes to you.
Great. Well, I know, Brandon, that you have a real positive outlook on our collective future here. And
Don't call me Black Pill Brandon for nothing.
Indeed, as I was doing my research, I noticed that. And that's why I love that, because that's what this show is all about, is just like being unfiltered. So thank you. I just want to talk about the American empire being overextended. So the American empire looks strong, I think you'll agree, right up until the credit card declines. Brandon, for normal people at home, what does American overextension actually mean? for gas prices, supply chains, interest rates, food, energy, and personal freedom.
Well, that's the whole show. Go for it. There we go.
In a one-liner, it means everything gets really, really, really unaffordable. I mean, it's already bad now, but it's going to get worse if, for instance, we can't get the Strait of Hormuz fully reopened and maintain its opening. Not just I'm sorry, I just got a very strange message. Okay. It is.
Was it from the White House? Was it?
Well, no,
like,
it was from.
Stop talking.
No, it was from Tucker, but I've never talked to him directly on offline. Okay. Anyway,
it's probably him saying he agrees with you.
I think it is.
Yes.
I think it is. I'm going to have to call him at the end of this. But anyway, it's going to be more expensive. That's the sort of the immediate term. If the strait does not reopen quickly and maintain its opening, then everything gets expensive, and it will affect the availability of certain products like agricultural goods, not just gas, but the food we eat, things like technology. A lot of the underlying critical resources we need to build, for instance, semiconductors, the computer chips for everything we use, well, they require helium. And what's one of the things that's been knocked out by the Strait of Hormuz being closed down and by the attacks during the Iran war on the Gulf Arab states, notably Qatar, which is a major producer of helium, helium production for the world has been knocked out. So you're already seeing concerns about shortages for semiconductors. And by the way, that will translate into the AI bubble possibly being burst, because all of those data centers and all of the AI technology and everything we're developing for that sector of the economy, which is really, that sector is the only reason the stock market keeps going crazy, considering everything else that's going badly for us. A shortage of semis could easily lead to a collapse of that AI bubble, which will then really bring the whole economy down. And this is all because of the Iran war. I mean, agriculture, technology, energy, these are sort of fundamental building blocks for the modern economic model, and they're all being strained and broken. And there is no guarantee that we're going to restore functionality to pre-war condition anytime soon in that part of the world for either Strait of Hormuz or for the production facilities in the Gulf Arab states.
Let me confirm something that you just said there, Brandon, because it's critical. I own a mass spec lab, and I was just giving a person a tour like an hour ago, and she looked at these giant tanks behind the mass spec instrument. She's like, "What are those?" I said, "Well, that's our year's supply of helium." She's like, "You have helium?" I'm like, "Yeah, because I ordered it in early March." And the company that delivers gas said, "Oh, why do you want a year's supply of helium?" I'm like, we just like helium." So they delivered it. 2 weeks later, we got a force majeure letter from the same company. We cannot deliver helium. So, Brandon, I have one of the few labs in Texas that has helium.
Amazing.
And that's why I have a security dog and firearms and everything, because they're going to come rob my helium.
Well, you could probably turn that around for a pretty penny if you don't need all of it.
I'm sure. No, we need it. We need it. But you're exactly right. And sulfuric acid.
Well,
is
MRIs even require. My wife works in medicine, and they're already in parts down. I live in Florida. In some of these hospitals, they're delaying MRI, or they were at least a month ago. I don't know if that's changed, but I know that in some hospitals in Florida, they were kind of trying to space out MRI appointments because of the declining supply of helium.
Wow.
So this is not just even about the computer issue. This affects like basic healthcare. What if you have a terminal or chronic illness that requires you to get checked to make sure it's not getting worse? MRIs are kind of important.
Yeah. And it's not just helium, as you said. It's also polyethylene, right? Yes. And I noticed, because I live on a ranch, I do a lot of irrigation plumbing with PEX lines and so on. Some of those parts have gone up over 1,000%. I mean, just plumbing.
And you talk about farming and ranch, whatnot. the agricultural supplies, 1/3 of the world's agricultural supplies depended on the Strait of Hormuz being open, urea production, et cetera. So there's no possible way that in the next year is going to be quote unquote normal for this country. Now, maybe we get lucky and it isn't 1929 type depression level, but I suspect there's going to be 2008 level economic disruption, financial disruption. I suspect also it might have hints of 2020 where we had the shutdowns for COVID, created all these supply chain breaks, created all these shortages downstream from the source. I think that's going to play out over the next year, notably in things like agriculture, because fertilizer, we don't have enough fertilizer for this planting season. So what's going to happen is certainly that by a year, we will see shortages on the grocery shelves for some of our most basic sort of commodities that we all take for granted in the store, the grocery store. Those are going to be in shorter supply. Right now, we're riding off of the reserves from last planting season. So that means by next year, though, the planting season for this year was basically shortened because of the Strait of Hormuz disruption. There's going to be shortages everywhere, not just overseas. We will feel them here, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, hey, Todd, Brandon's a fellow Floridian.
Where in Florida do you live, Brandon?
Well, I'll just say the region. I live in Southwest Florida.
Southwest. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're
Gulf
ever
Coast.
near Tampa, let's.
Oh yeah, it's 2 hours away.
Let's have a papaya together.
I would love to. Yeah, actually, it's funny. My wife is going to a conference right now in Orlando, and I know she's taking I-75 up.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So she'll be passing by you soon, I'm sure.
Excellent. Well, I don't know, guys. I mean, listening to you, I'm hearing a lot of doom and gloom, and I just think that you are both underestimating Trump's ability to play 25D chess, right? I mean, I think we're up to that, right? I just checked my Q report, and we're up to 25D
I think
chess.
this is closer to one-dimensional checkers. So, you know, what he's doing. Look,
Well,
I keep telling... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead and finish that.
No,
You
Todd
keep-
has a twisted sense of humor, so which I really enjoy. But is there more to that? Because I think we're stuck in Trump's time loop. I think we're in loop number 41 right now, and it's Groundhog Day.
It's amazing. Well, you know what? It leads me to a very important question. Is the West and Trump addicted to underestimating adversaries because admitting their competence is politically inconvenient?
Adversaries as in foreign adversaries.
Yeah.
I heard. Yeah, definitely. We consistently do this. We've done this. To be fair, we do this quite frequently, not just under Trump. I mean, remember,
Right.
everybody going into World War II in the United States government was fixated on the Nazi threat. Some were fixated on the potential of a Soviet, threat. This is before World War II for us got going. Nobody was really taking seriously the Japanese threat. And of course, the Japanese are the ones who ended up attacking us. And in some cases, we were more concerned about Italy and Benito Mussolini than we were Japan. And there was some racism there. There was some cultural chauvinism. There was some short-sightedness. We see that play out repeatedly, I think, over the last 80 years in American national security sort of history. And I think when it came specifically to the Islamic Republic of Iran, we had all, and I'm guilty at one point of doing this as well, we had all assumed the Iranians were this subpar power, bunch of crazies, jihadis. They're not going to be able to really do anything to the mighty American military. We should have started reassessing that assumption, though, even if that assumption was accurate, and it turns out it wasn't. We should have been reassessing that at the latest 2021. And what happened in August of 2021 was the disastrous U.S. pullout of Afghanistan, where we, after 20 years of war fighting, we handed the country, took it from the Taliban and gave it back to the Taliban. It was a strategic defeat for the United States at the hands of the cave-dwelling Taliban. That should have been a wake-up call for the whole system. It wasn't. Nobody was really fired. Nobody paid a price. Even Biden, to some degree, actually, there was plenty of Americans who may not have liked Biden, but they were okay. And on some level, I was okay with us getting out of Afghanistan, too. How we did it, though, was a disaster. But so you see this, we underestimate American foes, and we did it again here. The President Trump really believed This was going to be a 96-hour air war only. We were going to decapitate the regime in a handful of spots, kill the Ayatollah, and then all of those people who were protesting in the streets would rise as one and overthrow the regime, and we would suddenly have a friendly, a pro-American, pro-Israel regime in Iran. We didn't get that. After 96 hours, everything got worse. The Iranians, the Islamic Republic, got stronger. And the reason they got stronger is because the battle plan we used with the Israelis was exactly the war they had basically in Iran spent 47 years preparing for. We played right into their hands. We believed, we're going to take out the leadership, cut off the snake, the body will wither, which is beyond bizarre to me considering we spent the preceding 20 plus years fighting Al-Qaeda type terrorists who are not centralized. This was Al-Qaeda's big strength, was that they were a decentralized network of terrorist cells, which is why we went crazy for 25 years trying to kill these people. We never really could. And it's the same thing. The Iranians said, hey, we're going to decentralize everything in our state. We're going to prepare, we're going to harden everything in underground facilities that really only can be gotten to with nukes. And even then, it's a question of, can a low-yield nuke actually collapse those granite mountains? I don't think they can, actually. So the Iranians created an impregnable fortress under their mountainous country. And then they decentralized authority to all the local commanders. And they had a series of basically red lines. If the Americans and or Israelis, cross those red lines, these would be our graduated responses. The Iranians would do. And you saw that play out for the entirety of from February 28th until the end of quote unquote hostilities. The Iranians were driving the whole thing. I mean, the Iranians knew exactly what they were doing. Yeah, we blew a lot of stuff up. Yeah, we killed a lot of their people. But who knew? It's a nation of 96 million people. They had others waiting to take over. And they were prepared for this exact kind of war. Another thing is Trump ignored his military. I want to put this on the record. I've said it before. I'll say it again. The uniformed military leaders under Trump, before the war began, Dan Kane, the chief of staff, or the chief of the joint chief, I can never say this right. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCS, told the president the day before the war began, if you give this order, what will happen is almost immediately the Iranians will block the Strait of Hormuz. We have 20 plus years of war game data showing that in every contingency, that is Iran's go-to move at the strategic level. And it will destroy us without actually physically really killing Americans. It will destroy our economy and it will just completely destabilize the world. Trump didn't care. Went in one ear and out the other because Trump was underestimating his enemy, because Trump was putting way too much stock in the false promises of Benjamin Netanyahu, who was clearly obsessed with knocking out the Iranian regime, which if you're sitting in Israel, by the way, the Iranian regime is a real problem for you and you want to get Big Brother to knock him down and you will say and do whatever it takes and you'll find the most pliable president, who in this case was Donald Trump, to do that for you. And that's how we have this situation. This is not a victory for the United States, this war. This, what we saw happen with the Versailles Agreement, the memorandum of misunderstanding, and what we saw happen was basically it's a conditional surrender document. We're ceding the whole territory. It's now going to be a post-American Middle East. And that's not good for Israel, by the way, because it's not going to be a friendly, organization of post-American states in that region.
And of course, not the first time historically an empire that was overextended signed surrender at Versailles, right?
That's right.
So important to note.
That's right.
But I agree with what you said, that Trump thought he could conquer Iran very quickly, kind of like Venezuela. But since then, I think he's found some benefits in protecting the U.S. debt market. And I want to run this by you and get your feedback. It's really simple. By causing global chaos in all these ways that you've talked about, fertilizer shortages, food issues, supply chain, but also energy, not just gas, but oil, and then, local refineries in countries like Bangladesh not being able to get anything to make fertilizer. Trump has caused the kind of chaos that tends to cause global liquidity to seek a safe haven, which tends to be the dollar. It tends to be treasuries, and it tends to be the U.S. stock market. And also when oil goes up internationally, those countries, they tend to have to purchase oil in dollars, so they have to spend their local currencies to buy dollars to buy the oil. So that's why we're seeing, the Dixie rising, the dollar going up. Local currencies in Korea and other places keep falling, but all this capital is flowing into the U.S. temporarily right now. Kind of makes Trump look good briefly, doesn't it?
25D chess, baby.
Well, this gets me back to what I was going to say originally, which is any benefit that might be received is how shall I say, is blind luck. Because I really don't think Donald Trump, I keep telling people this, Donald Trump is America's id. Okay, he's not sitting around strategizing, the grand plan. There's nothing like that. He's a kinetic operator. He's a counterpuncher by his own description, and he's just sort of rolling with it. Now, his ability to adapt is how he managed to go from being a guy going through bankruptcy into getting the banks to bail him out in the 90s, which is one of the most impressive feats I've ever seen. So to his credit, the guy has tenacity, and he can turn many of these very destructive situations into a win. But I can guarantee you there are going to be unintended consequences of epic proportions for this country. And I can guarantee you it is not part of a plan. That he's just sort of like rolling with it. And, no matter what, going into this war, no matter what, it was going to be the greatest victory ever. Okay? No matter what, he was going to spin it. He was already doing it. We beat Iran 30 times in the last 3 weeks. This is it. And so admittedly, you're pointing out some really interesting shifts that are going on that could be amenable, and I hope they are, for our country. But fundamentally, we're doing it in a really slapdash, haphazard way, and there will be unintended consequences. And we were talking earlier about some of those consequences, which is going to be shortages, price hikes. I know everybody's celebrating the fact that there's this rapid decline going on in the price of oil globally, but people need to understand the trends. The reason that price is going down, there's a few reasons. The first is because the market is run by idiots who believe everything the president tells them. Because like Fox Mulder on the X-Files, they want to believe.
They're pricing in optimism that's just hopium.
Exactly. It's hopium. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is, going into this war, when the Iranians closed the Strait of Hormuz down, there were like 500 or more ships that got stuck in that waterway, could not move. They were loaded with supplies. And the market analysts that I know who were very savvy said from the beginning, whenever this thing ends and that thing reopens, there's going to be a mini glut, is what they called it, a mini glut of basically, because suddenly, hey, it's reopened. Maybe it's not fully reopened, but there's going to be a lot of ships going through that were loaded before the war began, and they're going to be hustling to get back home because they want to GTFO out of the Middle East.
Sure.
So that is one of the reasons why you're seeing this decline. And then the biggest story that only 2 or 3 analysts, public analysts that I follow, have talked about is something I've been talking about. When the war began, the Chinese, the largest consumer of Middle East oil, the Chinese voluntarily took themselves off the market. They had a strategic petroleum reserve of 1.4 billion barrels when the war began. Okay, so they were prepared for this very contingency, and they, I think, were looking at this war as a proof of concept. They wanted to see if they could really become self-sufficient, because they're not a resource-rich country. They have to depend on imports, but I think they just proved they're coming out of this war. Yeah, they drained some of their SPR, not like we did. And their SPR, by the way, the physical infrastructure for China's SPR, I think is fundamentally better than our own. Whereas we pour all the excess oil into salt mines, we then have to inject that oil with all kinds of chemicals to keep it floating and maneuverable, keep the viscosity, usable. The Chinese keep all theirs in above ground facilities, and they're well protected, and they're not manipulated the way that our SPR has to be manipulated. So when the U.S. government says, oh, we have about 340 million barrels left in our SPR, that might be technically true, but if you know anything about salt cavern storage of oil, really, it's
salt
closer
sludge.
to 100. That's right. It's really closer to 100 million barrels because the
Right.
deeper you go down into that salt cavern, the more corrupted, if you will, the oil becomes and the less usable it is. So the Chinese were well prepared, and they voluntarily pulled themselves off the market, which bought the rest of the world a massive sigh of relief, gave us a lot more wiggle room, which is why when people like me were originally saying, well, it's going to go up to $150 a barrel to $250 a barrel, at the time, we were not accounting for how significantly the Chinese would remove themselves from the market. That is why things went down when they should have been going up. But the Chinese have burned through, I think, at least a third of their SPR. They will come back onto the market soon enough. And when they do, if that strait is not fully reopened, and I fear it won't be, if that strait is not fully reopened, then everybody's going to be feeling the squeeze in terms of the price because there's going to be too much demand and not enough supply.
Well, look, the simple truth is that every single day that the strait is not back to fully functioning, which would mean over 100 commercial ships and tankers
140 ships per day.
And we're nowhere even close to that. But every day that happens, there's a deficit of world oil that's right, and that deficit is billions of barrels of oil over time. You can't print oil.
Remember, yes, exactly. I think Trump was all celebratory. He claimed that, a few weeks ago that, well, we, in 2 months since the war began, I was able to secretly move out, I think he said 100 million barrels of oil since February 28th until about 2 weeks ago. Well, just so everybody understands, even if that's accurate,
which it isn't,
they moved 100 million barrels per week through the Strait of Hormuz before the war began, per week. So that's maybe 10% of the stuff that the world needs. Right. So this whole thing is, he's spinning it, and this is what he does. So, again, I don't see a man with a plan. I see the dog that caught the car. And that's what Donald Trump is. And he doesn't know what the hell to do now. And he's just sort of going with it. And, he goes up a hill and it's a win. But hey, the next minute we might be going off a cliff because he doesn't have any actual control here. In fact, I don't know who has control. When Biden was president, I knew who had control. It was Jake Sullivan. It was Ron Klain. It was Jill. It was, you can
it was
run
his wife.
through.
The wife is always the one in control.
That's right. You can run through the litany and say, okay, there are power centers here with their hands on the wheel. I have no idea who has their hands on the wheel right now. Seb Gorka? I mean, I don't know who. And God help us all, because there's no controlling this runaway train. And I'm mixing my metaphors now.
Yeah. The dog caught the train. Okay, we got it. Todd, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to rewind a little bit because you made me giggle. You referenced Trump as what was ID?
Yeah, America's ID.
America's ID. I think that is great, and thank you, because I think you just gave us the title. Mike, I'm thinking the Wizard of ID.
The Wizard of ID.
but I also want to rewind. And did you hear, Mike, that Iran's strategy was decentralization? Right,
which is the name of our show.
Yeah, decentralized TV. And think of it. Decentralization became the anti-kill switch.
Yeah,
right. That was their survival, which is what we teach. Also, and decentralize everything.
And it's how Florida survived COVID better than most of the other states.
That's true.
Kind of, disconnected.
Well, it's because we all have internal middle fingers down here.
That's right.
So,
yeah, but for the record, Iran has not contacted us here on the show, just to be clear.
I was wondering if we should get some of the senior leadership on a show coming up, Mike. I'm just thinking. I mean, I think they would dig it.
Well, I did interview one person from Tehran. By the way.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
But separate from the show. He does a lot of interviews. He's very
Mamdani, Marandi, Professor Marandi.
Yeah, Professor Marandi. Yeah, I interviewed Professor Marandi.
Oh, that's cool.
He's very intelligent, very well spoken, very.
What we could
he's
have
from
him
Falls
on.
Church, Virginia.
Huh?
We could have him on.
He's originally from Falls Church, Virginia.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting.
He's an American by birth, I think.
Okay.
But I know that he has some connection to Falls Church. And then he ended up over in Iran, and it's a fascinating background.
Oh, yeah.
That he has. But yeah, he's a very bright guy. I don't always. I mean, he's clearly shilling for the regime, but he's been right a lot in terms of his sort of predictions. And
that's true. And so have you. You've been so right again and again and again. And the funny thing is, always on X, I'm finding that I'm agreeing with exactly what you're saying.
Well, thank you. It's very lethal, though, if you agree with me. Just
we've all been through that. But go ahead, Todd. We didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. So, Brandon, it strikes me that Iran doesn't need to beat America. It just needs to make America winning too expensive. Would you agree with that?
Correct. That's exactly correct.
And my question is Iran now, are they a regional power, a proxy network, an energy weapon, or all three combined?
Oh, they're all the above. I would posit here, and I've said elsewhere, and Dr. Artem Moini, who's a colleague of mine, is also, this is really his thesis, but I agree with him, and I've written in more detail at my website about the Weichert brief on Substack. It's a post-American world, or post-American Middle East, rather, soon to be a post-American world, but it's a post-American Middle East that is going to be dominated by 5 powers, all of them Islamic powers. The Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan with their nukes, Egypt, which is the second largest economy in Africa, and it's probably the best conventional military in the Muslim world, and Turkey, which also is a very potent military in its own right. It's a member of NATO, but it has a very expansive and robust and very skilled defense industrial base. And that defense industrial base is able to produce not only NATO weapons, but indigenous weapons. The Turks have been producing, similar to the Chinese, have been producing high-end warships out of their shipyards like sausages. The Turks, Jonathan Conricus, who was the former IDF spokesman, recently said at the JNS conference that it is his belief that the Israelis could never build basically any advanced weapon without the U.S. And he was kind of chiding Benjamin Netanyahu, who's recently saying he's going to lead Israel away from the U.S. from depending on us, which of course I think is ridiculous.
Right.
But that's what Netanyahu's saying. And Conricus was saying you shouldn't even joke like that because we can't even build an F-35, which is their primary warplane, without the direct input of the United States. Whereas Turkey absolutely has already demonstrated they can build an indigenous, at least 4.5 generation, 5th generation warplane that is close to proximate to the US F-35, and that's the Khan warplane. And this is their answer to the F-35 in Turkey because we cut them out. Obama did. We cut them out of I think it was Trump in his first term, cut the Turks out of the F-35 program.
And Turkey can make them autonomous because aren't they very good at drone?
They and the Iranians are world leaders in drone technology.
Yes.
And autonomous fighting systems. And in fact, the Turks have really streamlined this autonomous kill capability in Ukraine. They've been supplying the Ukrainians with, in fact, I believe the Turks opened up I think it was their drone producer, it starts with a B, I'm forgetting now. I think it's I can't remember now. But their drone producer opened a major production facility inside Ukraine about 2 years ago, to better amplify and support their clients in Kyiv against Russia. And the amount of iterative adaptations that the Turkish drone forces have enjoyed as a result of being that involved means that Turkey is a premier military power in the modern sense, whereas Israel is really demonstrating, notably in southern Lebanon, they are not well prepared for this new kind of warfare. The Israelis are losing their Merkava tanks left and right to Hezbollah, first-person drone to advanced anti-tank guided munitions. These are the tactics. Hezbollah is using the tactics the Ukrainians used very effectively in the first few months of the Ukraine war, when the Russians did not yet at that point adapt to the new kind of drone warfare, and the Russians kept sending their tanks and armored vehicles up the gut, if you will, and they kept getting obliterated. Russia adapted very quickly, though, and they've now been able to kind of balance that and do their own sort of, attacks in this new method of war. The Israelis watched this happen from afar, and they never embraced any of the new theories. They're still using tanks like it's 2006. They're still, they're not prepared to fight better against drones. They're not prepared to employ drones, even though they have some good drone producers. Israel, at the tactical sort of the level of application, they just haven't gotten there yet, like the Americans, like much of the rest of the West. They haven't gotten to the application phase yet. And that's very similar, actually, I would just add, to World War II, where the United States entered the war after Pearl Harbor, and initially, particularly against the Wehrmacht, the German infantry and their armor corps in North Africa. Remember Kasserine Pass? The United States got its ass kicked. And it took a lot of very serious, painful adaptation to the way in which the Germans had honed their fighting skills in the new method of warfare for the Americans to catch up and eventually surpass the real advantages that notably the Germans had. But also the Japanese in naval warfare. They had really pioneered carrier use, and it took us, it took Pearl Harbor, when we basically lost most of the Pacific Fleet's battleship contingent. We had to rely on the aircraft carrier. We didn't really know what to do with them. We had to figure it out on the spot, because otherwise we wouldn't have had any other ship with which to attack. In my opinion, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, these four powers that are basically competitors or rivals with the United States, all of them are ahead of the curve when it comes to prepared to fight the new form of war against the United States and its partners. And it's a severe imbalance. And I'm worried that our lack of industrial scale in this coming world war is not going to be very helpful. We were able to adapt and overcome the Axis powers because ultimately we had what's known as latent industrial capability at home. Today, we do not have that. We sent that capability starting in the 70s over to places like China, who now enjoy those latent industrial capabilities.
Well, Brandon, I love what you just said there. Thanks for that explanation. And I just want to add, I've compared it to, for example, it wouldn't be the first time that decentralization of manufacturing technology and innovation caused the failure of an empire. So, for example, the War of Independence in the United States, with the widespread decentralized manufacturing of originally muskets and then later rifles, enabled the colonials to beat the British Empire, because the British Empire were fighting the old method of war.
That's right.
Standing in a row, while our guys were doing, basically, 18th century guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, and the guerrilla warfare aspect, particularly in the American South during the Revolutionary War, was really complicating for the British.
Yeah.
They did not know how to adapt.
Right.
That's a great point. And I love that you brought up the American Revolution, because I feel like we often sort of gloss over that. And it's just like, oh yeah, there was George Washington and we did this. But there was a lot of great examples in that conflict, the United States being the underdog. We were the insurgency. We really, in many respects, George Washington, in fact, Mao and Ho Chi Minh, they all pointed to George Washington as an example for how they were going to fight the Americans in the respective wars that they fought against us, which were, of course, insurgencies. They understood that George Washington didn't beat the British in a fair fight. What they did was George Washington used strategic depth, right? He knew that North America was an expansive geography, and he knew that ultimately the British were coming from far away. The technology base was not there to allow for them to get instantaneous communication and instantaneous reinforcements. Right. So Washington understood time and space were his friends, and that's how he fought the war. He fought the war using time and space. Not great tactics always, not the best strategy in terms of, conventional force versus versus conventional force. It was, I'm going to just drag the British deeper and deeper into North America. I'm going to use the terrain. I'm going to hit them when I can and then keep the bulk of my force out of the fray so that the British can't get a kill shot and take out my force, because if they can, then I'm done. And this is what the Persians or the Iranians did to us, by the way.
Yes.
They
Yes.
let us hit them because they knew how we were probably going to do it, and they were prepared for it, and they were prepared to respond accordingly. And they actually, by the way, get back to something I was saying earlier, people like me, I'll fully admit, when I lived in DC, when I worked in government, everybody I knew just assumed, because this is what the Israelis told us, just assumed that you can't trust these Iranians. They're crazy. They're basically bin Laden. If they get nukes, that's the end. They're going to start self-detonating those nukes all over the world. You are effed. So you got to just stop them from getting these systems. Well, in reality, we've now seen how the Persians fight. And the Islamic Republic actually fights very similar to how the Persians during Crassus's time fought. They use, like George Washington, they use strategic depth and they use time as a real factor in allowing for them to achieve victory, because the Iranians understood they don't have to go to total war. They don't have to send suicide bombers into Manhattan. They don't have to do any of that to beat us. All they have to do is complicate our ability to move goods and services through the Strait of Hormuz. All they have to do is pressure the Gulf Arab states into basically turning on the United States and Israel, which they have done quietly, not openly, but there is a real pushback now from the Arab states to our presence and to maintaining positive relations with Israel because of what the economic damage from the war has been.
Yeah.
So all of this leads to the Iranians are not crazy. They actually were very rational and reasonable in their response. They didn't wantonly target civilian targets, which is more than I can say for what we did against Iran. They didn't go out and look to blow up, all of Riyadh. They targeted targets that were militarily viable targets. This is within the context of international law. They actually played much fairer, the Iranians did, than even we and the Israelis did against them. And so my point that I'm making here is the Iranians are not crazy. And I think that actually means that's a good thing, because, the worst thing would be to go up against a crazy, if they get nukes, they're going to blow up the world type of rival. Clearly, the Iranians have very, very limited ends, ways, and means, but they're much better at applying those limited ends, ways, and means for real strategic gain, whereas we are not.
Brandon, what you just said makes perfect sense. I just want to comment, and then it's Todd's question. But what you said makes perfect sense. Their retaliation has always been very disciplined and very measured.
It has.
But there is a completely insane nation in the region that starts with I, that has nuclear weapons, that does target civilians, but it doesn't have 4 letters in the name of its country. So let's just keep that in mind. If there's anybody we should be holding back, it's that other country. But anyway, I think our audience understands that. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, Brandon. So let's just presume post Wizard of Id 25D chess, comma, okay. What's more likely to survive another 100 years? America, the Federal Reserve, or Keith Richards?
Probably Keith Richards at this point.
Okay, I have a serious question. Who benefits when every regional conflict gets sold to America as an existential battle for civilization?
The 7 wealthiest counties that ring Washington, D.C.
Oh, unpack that.
Okay, so after 9/11, we began a massive influx of spending on defense-related industries, and by, I think, 2018 was when they first started saying this. And I was living in D.C. I was living in Alexandria, Virginia at this time, and my city was on the list. That the 7 wealthiest zip codes in the United States, or 7 of the wealthiest zip codes in the United States, ringed Washington, D.C. And that was in Northern Virginia and Southern Maryland, and obviously Northwest DC is very palatial. But places like Great Falls, places like 22207, Arlington County. And they're deceiving too, by the way, because my wife is from North Arlington. You go to Arlington and they're like these ramblers from like the 50s. And you're like, wow, okay, that'd be a nice starter. And they're like, no, this is a $1 million or more home. What? And it's because the influx of cash following 9/11 that saw the growth of government, and then of course the influx of cash from all the bailouts in '08. So you had this concomitant rise in defense spending, rise in non-defense spending. But any way you look at it, that whole region just exploded in size and in terms of its reach and its power. So when you ask who benefits from every threat or potential threat being existential, it's the people, it's the professional, warmongers in DC. It's the defense contractors. It's the lobbyists for the defense contractors. It's the law firms that represent the defense contractors. It's the congressmen and senators who, after they eventually leave office, look to get a very cushy job on the boards of these defense contractors. It's the generals and admirals who will, when they retire, likely get on the board of these defense contractors. That is who is benefiting.
That's a great answer.
Yes.
Seriously.
Thank you. Thank you.
100%. All right.
It's lived experience.
Let me ask you an economics question here. I used to, when Joe Biden was president, I would mock the Democrats for threatening to investigate grocery stores for failing to lower food prices quickly.
Oh, the oil thing. Yeah.
So, of course, Trump comes out and says, I'm going to have the DOJ investigate the oil companies for not lowering the gas prices quickly enough. And I'm like, my God, in one sentence, you abandon free market principles. You admit you have no understanding of logistics and how oil is priced and competition and everything. And isn't the GOP supposed to be, anti-regulation and pro-free market? Like, let the market find real, price signaling and everything. He just threw all that out the window.
The hardest lesson for me to have learned the last 10 years has been that whatever you think of the Democrats, they are principled. Now, maybe we don't agree with their principles, but they are very principled. The Republicans believe in nothing. The Republican Party is a nihilistic party. I'm not saying the voters. Obviously, the people
You're
who
talking
vote,
about the leaders.
Talking about the institutions and whatnot. And Trump is the perfect representation of this, right? He's the perfect representation of this. And ultimately, fundamentally, the United States has a party in the Republican Party that stands for nothing, and that's why it's being pushed around.
Well, clearly it doesn't stand for America. Yeah. Tucker Carlson just announced he's leaving the GOP, and for a very good reason. Actually, the GOP left Tucker Carlson. Let me put it that way.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Because Tucker's values have not changed. His principles have not changed, but the party has just gone haywire.
Yep. I agree. And I think that the issue here is Trump doesn't believe in anything either.
Yeah.
Philosophical. He has no beliefs. The only thing Trump wants is money for him and his family. Money.
Do you think I'm sorry, do you think when the Iran war went past 96 hours, do you think he was sad that he wasn't going to have a temple built to himself in Iran? Big golden statue.
I think he would love that, wouldn't he? Well, and all he cares about is enriching himself and his family. And that's, and by the way, this whole talk about, I'm going to investigate the oil company. Most of those oil guys are his buddies. He's not going to do jack. Yeah. All right. He's going to huff and puff, and he's going to try to make it about it's them being at fault. When really it's him at fault. The reason we're going through any of this is because of him. He listened to Bibi. He didn't listen to the uniformed military guys. He didn't listen to his own voters. He didn't listen to anybody but Bibi and the promise of a lot of money. And that's the key thing here is the Trump family is making a lot of money right now off these wars. His sons have become defense contractors. His family's been in bed with Miriam Adelson. They're all making money off of this. So, it's not really surprising to me that he doesn't listen to anybody but Netanyahu and Netanyahu's chosen few here in the United States.
Yeah. Well, there you go. A total abandonment of principle. But yet, Brandon, in a few months, all those same GOP leaders are going to be saying we have to vote for them. Otherwise, the alternative will be worse. And vote for what? You didn't do jack shit, pardon my language, but you didn't do anything you promised to do last time. Why are we supposed to vote for you again? What?
Yeah. Well, and this is how it always goes. You know, the Republican voters who consistently turn out have Stockholm syndrome by now.
That's
you know, and
mildly,
this is why I'm telling people in my circle, don't vote. I'm refusing to vote. I don't care. I'm completely checked out now from the political outcome here because we now saw where this all leads. 10 years ago, if you had told me this is where we would be, I wouldn't have believed you. But it's, you know, again, the Democrats, I know what I'm getting with the Democrats, but the Republicans, all they care about is how they get rich and powerful. All they care about is how they get their next Fox News gig. They don't care about anything that they may have at one time before getting big and powerful they cared about. They don't. And they never will, because the incentive structure on the right is not about the ideology the way it is on the left. On the left, the only time that the left turns on its own is if that individual or group is not committed enough to the cause. The only time the right wing turns on anybody in its own ranks is if you dare to question the Orange Messiah. And, you know, meanwhile, most of these people hate Donald Trump behind his back, which this is the part that I find hilarious. These are the people who signed 2 letters in 2016, you know, against Trump. He was a moral hazard to the national security. I know a lot of these people that signed that letter. I was one of the architects of the Scholars and Writers for Trump letter that was supposed to, that countered that. We had Michael Anton, we had David Goldman, we had Frank Buckley, we had all these, and Frank Buckley was one of, actually the real architect of that. We had all these great right-wing thinkers and leaders who risked a lot in terms of reputational damage to side with Trump publicly and to go against people, you know, like Elliot Abrams, and to go against some of these giants from the Reagan era who were saying that Trump was a moral hazard. Now those people who said Trump was a moral hazard to national security in 2016, they're the clapping seals in the background now, encouraging Trump to go after Iran harder, telling anybody who is questioning Trump from his right, they're not true MAGA. When in reality, we were actual MAGA. We were actual America first. I was on board with Trump when he first came down the escalator. That was my, you know.
Trump lecturing us about the principles of MAGA is like Marco Rubio lecturing us about international law.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
It's like you're the worst example of this possible.
Again, I kick myself because really, I think what you're seeing is not a new Trump. I think this is who Trump always was, but I was blinded with hope that he was going to be different enough to correct the significant problems in Washington. And he's not. He's part of the problem now. In fact, he's subsidizing the problems. And what will happen is he's going to lose his majority in November, and it will lead to ultimately the defeat of the Republic, whatever remains, because when the Democrats take over, and they will, they're going to go after him like he's never been gone after before. And this time he'll have no exit strategy. In 24, he could always save himself by getting reelected, which he did. There's none of that unless he decides he's not going to leave office, which is not as crazy as it sounds at this point.
Well, I want to ask you about this, so keep going along this line. Actually.
Well, I was just going to say, so basically, Trump's really doomed himself and his family because the Democrats, I know for a fact, because the Democrats have actually been reaching out to me quite a bit, and I've befriended quite a few of them, and it sounds like they have a real comprehensive plan of revenge.
Oh, really?
And they are going to have,
tell us.
They're going to have the capability, if they're going to win as big as I think they are beginning in November, they're going to have the capability to really gut Trump and MAGA.
Wait, are you saying just with a House majority and possibly a Senate majority?
No, they're not going to have just a House majority. They're getting the whole
Senate
thing.
But they won't have the White House until a couple years later.
They don't need to get the White House. All they have to do is launch an impeachment of him, and even if they don't remove him, they're going to neuter him politically. They're going to go after Hegseth first, I think.
Well, and I think they should, by the way.
Strikes.
I support the prosecution of Hegseth. I just want to be clear.
But why they're prosecuting him, it has nothing to do with the reason they're saying. It's because they want to just weaken Trump. They're going to try to collapse the House of Cards by going for the weakest card, which will be Hegseth. Then they'll go to the next. You go down the line. They'll work down the line of every person around Trump. Then they'll get him isolated. They're going to squeeze him. Then they'll start an impeachment of him. Whether they get him removed or not, by that point, it's not going to matter. He's going to be completely inert as a president, and he'll be just kind of hanging around for his last year and a half. And in the meanwhile, what goes on? The country is going to be dragging along.
Oh yeah.
And then at best, we're going to get Gavin Newsom in 2028 with probably Abigail Spanberger as his Veep. And, and then it'll be probably 40 years of Democrat majority rule at that point, because I can tell you right now, the young people, African Americans, Latinos who came over from the Democratic Party or who came to vote for the first time for Donald Trump in 2024 almost universally hate him now.
Yep.
And if they do come out to vote, it's going to be for the Democrat, and it's going to be for the most radical Democrats. And you're already seeing that, by the way, in New York. Right?
Absolutely.
The results it's very clear what's happening here is that all of that populist energy that was for Trump is now clearly shifting. What hasn't been extinguished is now being shifted over to the Democrats, and they're looking for Democratic socialists. So that's the future of this country. And it's at this point, there's no off-ramp. There's nothing that can be done, because what's going to happen is these economic injuries imposed on us by the Iran war, no matter what, we're going to feel them. It may not be a depression, but it'll certainly be recessionary environment. And given the timeline that we're looking at, it'll be hitting right as we're going into the voting booths in 2026, in this November. It's not going to play out well for the Republicans. It's just not.
Okay, stop the ride. I want to get off. I just, I don't want to have to suffer through where this is going, but you and I both know, all three of us know, that there are repercussions, that reality hits the fan. And
that's right.
Things have been set into motion that cannot be undone. Todd, I don't know if you want to have a question or a comment on all of this, but go for it.
Well, I have a couple of comments. One is, you can call me Conspiratod or Conspiratard. I don't care. But I finally convinced my wife that the Trump that we see today that is just off the reservation is a short, fat Trump. President Xi is 5'11", and there are pictures all over the internet to where they're together. Trump and Xi are together, and Trump is shorter. So you tell me, because I think Trump should be a lot taller. So I think they somehow subbed him out for something else. So again, they call me Uncle Conspirator.
Or they're microdosing his Diet Coke.
That could be. That could be. And then the other thing is regarding just going out and not voting or just exiting that system. I disagree respectfully. The last two elections, I did vote, and I wrote in Jesus Christ in each one of those. And I think, and I told my wife and said, "You're kidding." And I said, "Yana, he is the only one who can fix this shithole." So my last question for you is, because I just want to talk about.
Wait, let me just say, I'm going to vote in Texas only so I can vote against Ted Cruz. There you go. That is my number one reason to go vote.
I might become Texan. I might become Texan to come join you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to. My last question is just to talk a little bit about the collapse of trust in experts. So, credentialed failure is apparently a renewable resource. Why do so many experts keep getting the big things wrong, like Iraq, Afghanistan, COVID, Ukraine, China, inflation, and still keep their jobs, Brandon?
Well, it's because they're serving
the seven counties.
They're serving special interests, and the special interests want them there, and therefore they will stay there. It's not about being right. It's not even about being wrong. It's not even about what you believe. It's about who's paying you. You're basically a PR flag. Who's paying you to say what? And are you good at speaking the script? Are you good at convincing people to follow that line? That's all that is. That's all Washington, D.C. has become. Okay. It's just become a PR place, and it's not even particularly good PR. The experts. Nobody cares what they think about what they're experts in. They just care, can you sell the dream? Can you sell what we're trying to sell? Can you push it along not only to the public, but can you push it along inside the halls of power? And if you can, you are fine, and you never have to say you're sorry, because everybody's in on the game in DC.
Right.
You know what's funny is Trump is he turning on the rallies again?
By the way,
who knows?
Brandon, we're are you okay on time here? I mean, I'm about to.
I actually do need to go.
That's what I thought. We want to be respectful. Let me just give out your handle here. It's We the Brandon on X, and then Weichert.substack.com is your Substack. I know you got to run. Thank you for joining us. You're welcome back anytime.
Take you, guys.
All right.
Okay.
Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
All right. Join the official discussion channel for this show on Telegram at t.me/decentralizedtv.
where you can ask questions or offer suggestions of who we should interview next. Also be sure to subscribe to the email newsletter on decentralized.tv, where you'll be alerted about 1 day in advance of each new upcoming episode, before it gets published. On decentralized.tv, you'll also find links to our video channels and social media channels across all platforms, including Brighteon, Rumble, BitChute, Twitter, Truth Social, and more. Check it all out at decentralized.tv.
All right, there you go. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Todd, but
No worries.
The time
Thank
flew
you.
by. I mean,
I hadn't even looked. Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
No, Brandon's
Wow.
a great guest. We could talk with him for hours, but he's probably got another interview. So I just wanted to,
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
He's
he's got it.
I love it when people have that fun energy. He's just. I really enjoyed that.
Me too. Yeah, because you and I, we always have a fun time here. We laugh, we joke around. We do fun stuff, and occasionally, power supplies blow up over here on old computers and things like that. But Brandon also has a sense of humor. But
Yeah.
in a sense, it's gallows humor though, because we all know this republic
exactly
is
what-
screwed.
Yeah,
And that's kind of depressing,
yeah.
right?
But if you can't joyfully get screwed and laugh through it all, I mean,
Well, I would just say, hence the importance of what we teach on
show.
this show, which is
Yeah.
like you got to decentralize, because the central system is cratering. The dollar
Amen.
is going to collapse. The government barely functions. The courts are a nightmare. Did you see the Supreme Court just granted legal immunity to Bayer for all the glyphosate poisoning of all the people in
I
America?
did not see that. That's disgusting.
Disgusting. So you can't even sue now in state courts against Bayer, even if their product causes cancer. And the Supreme Court said the reason you can't sue is because one federal agency has declared that glyphosate does not cause cancer. Therefore, you have no standing in any court, any state court in America.
Unbelievable.
Imagine
Mike, if history, Mike, is cyclical, are we in the Rome part, the Weimar part, or the idiocracy part?
We are in Weimar meets Weichert.
Oh, very good.
That's right. That's what's happening. Black Pill Weichert. I mean, no, he's a great guest, but
Yeah.
and he's right. People can say, "Oh, you're blackpilling everybody." Actually, just trying to warn people of what's coming. But yeah, I mean, the Weimar chapter is going to happen, but slowly, because there's a lot of circulation of the dollar
Right.
in the world,
Yeah.
right? So that's going to be much slower. But we know where the dollar is headed. It's headed to zero.
Oh, yeah.
It will be a collapsed currency at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I liked your observation though today about, the shitstorm in the Middle East actually having some positive consequences for the dollar, not on purpose,
Right.
but by default, right?
Well, it makes a strong dollar, but unfortunately, of course, that harms U.S. manufacturers and exporters because it makes
Yeah.
U.S. goods more expensive overseas. So that actually causes job loss domestically, but it protects Trump's Treasury debt market by keeping yields below 5%. So that's all they care about, is protecting, Washington, D.C., protecting that
Yeah.
cartel. They don't care about the American people. They're throwing the people under the bus.
You don't think they're going to solve it in Washington, D.C.? What, Mike, what's the over-under of Congress solving everything, the shit show, before my papayas become self-aware?
Yeah. There is no reform from
No.
within the system, period. It will never happen. I mean, frankly, Trump and RFK Jr. and, Kash Patel at the FBI, this was the last attempt. This was the last experiment to see for this republic if there could be reform from within, and it failed
true.
miserably.
Well, we were conned miserably. I mean,
Sure.
because unless I'm right and they subbed him out with the short, fat Trump, I mean, how could he go from being that person that was giving these rallies that, I mean, all of us started to say, maybe he's going to change things. And then he totally about face it. It was just like, bam, kicking you right in the where.
I mean, when you're, as a candidate, when you're willing to just flat out lie and tell people
Yeah.
what the surveys say they want to hear, when
Right.
you have no intention of doing that, you can get a lot of votes, apparently.
It's just not no intention of doing that. It's knowing you won't do it and you'll do the opposite.
Right.
Right.
Con. It was a con. That's the right
term. It was a total con. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did
Trump
have
is
an
a national contractor.
Yes, he is. I did have a fun question for the after party for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Two questions. If aliens landed tomorrow and demanded to speak to Earth's leader, who would you nominate just for the entertainment value?
Does it have to be a living person?
I think so.
Really? Oh, okay. That's too bad.
Well, no, let's take that off the table.
Oh, okay. If we take it off the table, then I think aliens should talk to Robin Williams. How about that? Yeah.
That would be great.
It's perfect. Because he even played the part of an alien in Mork and Mindy back in the 1970s.
Oh, wasn't that the best?
Yeah. So he's already got it nailed down. Probably the aliens would say, "Oh, you're one of us. We will spare your Earth." You know.
You are a new leader.
Yeah.
So which world leader today would you least want to be trapped in an elevator with for 4 hours, Mike?
Hillary.
Oh, yeah.
Just because of the stink, you know? I mean,
yeah.
Just
the stink.
The stank. Yeah, whatever that is.
You know who I would choose? Lindsey Graham. I just cannot stand when that guy opens his mouth and fogs a mirror. I cringe. You know? Yeah,
well, fortunately, you never have to step into an elevator with Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, that's true.
An elevator to hell, I think, is where that one's going down.
You know, I was thinking as we were listening to Brandon that our viewers are going to say, you know, from a prepper standpoint, do I buy more canned food or just lots of bourbon?
Well, probably both. I think I tell people, buy vodka because you can either drink it or you can make herbal tinctures. It's a great solvent for extracting medicine from herbs that you grow, right?
Yeah.
It's a great preservative too.
Well, years ago, and I still have it, I bought these 8-ounce little jars, and I went and I got the, what is the 150 proof alcohol, the white alcohol? There's a name for it. Anyway.
Like grain alcohol or something?
Yeah, grain alcohol.
Yeah.
So I bought a bunch of that, and I probably have 100 8-ounce jars of just that, because I was thinking, you could trade that, because there's people out there that, if the shit hit the fan, that they would really like to be able to get drunk, and you could certainly do it with that. And then the other is, I think you get a cut, it's good for wounds.
It's an antiseptic. I
think you could light fires with it, right?
That's true. You can burn it. It's very clean for combustion.
Right.
It doesn't produce, a lot of soot or whatever.
So everybody this weekend, go buy a bunch of little 8-ounce mason jars and grain alcohol and have some fun prepping.
Just load up a case of vodka and just explain to the cashier, it's for prepping. Yeah.
I'm prepping my liver.
Prepping my liver. Yeah. Cashier be like, whatever you want to do, honey. It's up to you.
The title's either The Wizard of It or Prepping My Liver. I don't know which, but...
All right. We're almost out of time, and I want to be sure to mention your solution for how people can send less money legally to fund the wars and the insanity in Washington, D.C. That is, if they're in the right circumstances. But I'll bring up your website. It's my575e.com.
Yeah, and I tell you, we've talked a lot about this on the shows, and I have had so many consultations recently of people just saying, I'm glad I hung in there, and I'm glad I finally booked a consultation with you. And it's really getting exciting, Mike. The private Telegram group that we have now has 600 people in it. And you get that when you acquire a UNA. And what is a UNA? It is an entity, a lawful entity. It needs to be a California established UNA for all of you AI Chat GPT warriors who are going to go research it. Just please know the prompts most people enter are not correct. It certainly needs to be a California established UNA, but it will help you keep more of what you earn, protect what you have, and decrease your personal liability. And Mike, I haven't shared this with you yet, but we are taking it to a new level, and we are going to add another category for people who have more complicated business interests, whether it's LLCs or, C Corps, S Corps, or whatever. We're putting together a package to where we demonstrate how these really, really work well with those other additional entities. And
Wow.
I'm super excited. It's just it's going to expand the opportunity for people greatly. But I just encourage people. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was thinking you should have like an add-on service where the people that have the UNAs can hire someone on your team to do things to record
exactly
their property at the county level, or to open a bank account or whatever, like to do or transfer a car into a UNA. Like
have you been looking into my emails, Mike?
No.
This is exactly what we are creating here.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So we'll have a turnkey package for somebody who's brand new.
Okay.
To where they get a turnkey service that's more than just a UNA. And then for those who acquire a UNA and want to figure out how to operationalize it in a more productive way. I mean, acquiring the UNA is just the first step. Actually rightly using it, benefiting from it, that's where the gold is. And that's where we're starting to have some fun, Mike. And we are assembling the experts to be able to provide people that Sunsei-like guidance.
Okay, that's really critical. We'll talk about that more in another episode, by the way, because we're almost out of time here. Let me mention my website, healthrangerstore.com is where you can get clean, ultra clean foods, lab tested for glyphosate and heavy metals and so much more. Why does this matter? Well, because like I said, the Supreme Court just granted glyphosate manufacturers absolute legal immunity, which means farmers are going to be spraying glyphosate all over their crops. And did you know that the FDA doesn't have any legal limit of glyphosate on crops, and that USDA Organic doesn't test for glyphosate or heavy metals? But we do at healthrangerstore.com in our own mass spec laboratory to guarantee ultra clean foods, superfoods, nutritional supplements, and so much more. Just go to healthrangerstore.com, and with each purchase, you get loyalty points that you can trade for book tokens that you can use to create longer books at brightlearn.ai or deeper research answers at brightanswers.ai. So check all that out, folks, and you'll help support the show as well. So that's it for today's episode, Todd. That was a fun one.
Great show.
Oh, we got to have Brandon back.
Oh, we do.
Yeah. But
he brought joy to the show.
He did. We'll just have to have a Brandon party. Get him back on.
Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go, Brandon. All right. Well, thank you, Todd, for joining me today. It's been another fun episode. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Check out decentralized.tv for all the other episodes, because they're available for free and you'll learn something from each episode. So be sure to check them out. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Manuka honey is a rich source of essential nutrients and antioxidants. Get one of the most potent honeys in the world with Health Ranger Select Premium Manuka honey. Only at healthrangerstore.com.